I'm Scarlett, 28, and I thought I knew my family until my parents literally threw a champagne bottle at my head during my brother's engagement party. What started as a celebration turned into the most humiliating moment of my life when they accused me of stealing a condo that was supposedly promised to my golden child brother Marcus. The $680,000 property I'd been secretly saving for became the catalyst that exposed decades of favoritism, lies, and manipulation. As champagne dripped down my face and guests stared in horror, I realized this wasn't just about real estate, it was about a family that never truly accepted me. But here's what they didn't know: I had been recording everything. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama that literally changed my entire life, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. If you're ready for a story that has more twists than a soap opera, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this revenge tale is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss how karma comes full circle in the most satisfying way possible. Let's get into this family betrayal that taught me everything I needed to know about blood loyalty. Growing up in the Morrison household meant living in Marcus's shadow, and I accepted that reality for 28 years. My parents, Linda and Robert Morrison, made it crystal clear from day one that their firstborn son was destined for greatness, while I was merely the supporting character in his success story. Marcus, now 31, had everything handed to him on a silver platter. The best schools, a brand new car at 16, college tuition paid in full, and even his first apartment deposit covered by our parents' generous wallets. Meanwhile, I worked 3 part-time jobs throughout high school just to afford my own car insurance. When I graduated with honors and earned a partial scholarship to State University, my parents attended Marcus's baseball game instead of my graduation ceremony. "Scarlett will understand," my mother always said, as if my understanding was a given while Marcus's needs were non-negotiable priorities. The favoritism wasn't subtle. Every family dinner revolved around Marcus's latest achievements, his girlfriend Elena's modeling career, or their future plans. When Marcus announced he was proposing to Elena after dating for only 8 months, my parents immediately started planning an engagement party that would cost more than my annual salary. They rented the country club's ballroom, hired a professional photographer, and even brought in a live string quartet. "This is going to be the event of the season," my mother gushed, while showing me the gold-embossed invitations. "Everyone needs to see how successful our family is. Our family." As if I had contributed anything to this success story they were so eager to showcase. The cruel irony was that while my parents were bankrupting themselves to throw Marcus the perfect engagement party, I had been quietly building my own financial empire. For the past 6 years, I'd been working as a freelance graphic designer while maintaining a full-time position at a marketing firm. Every dollar I earned went into 2 places: my basic living expenses and my secret savings account. I lived in a studio apartment that cost $800 a month, drove a 15-year-old Honda Civic, and hadn't bought new clothes in 2 years. My coworkers probably thought I was broke, but the truth was far more strategic. I was saving for something that would change my life forever. My own place, bought and paid for with money I'd earned through pure determination and sacrifice. The condo I'd been eyeing was a beautiful 2-bedroom unit in the Riverside Heights development, complete with granite countertops, hardwood floors, and a balcony overlooking the city skyline. At $680,000, it represented everything I'd worked toward: independence, security, and proof that I didn't need my parents' approval or financial support to build the life I wanted. What I didn't realize was that my parents had been making promises about that exact same property to their precious golden child. 3 weeks before Marcus's engagement party, I submitted my offer on the condo, My real estate agent Jennifer called me that same afternoon. With incredible news, the sellers had accepted my offer and we could close within 30 days. I was so excited that I almost called my parents to share the news, but something held me back. Maybe it was years of having my achievements overshadowed by Marcus's mediocre accomplishments, or maybe it was the intuitive knowledge that this moment belonged to me alone. Instead, I decided to wait until after the engagement party to make my announcement. I figured that once Marcus had his moment in the spotlight, I could finally share some good news of my own. It seemed like the considerate thing to do, let the golden child have his celebration, then quietly reveal that the family failure had actually made something of herself. That decision to wait would prove to be both the best and worst choice I'd ever made. The night before the engagement party, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how different my life was about to become. In just a few weeks, I'd be living in my own beautiful condo, hosting dinner parties, and finally feeling like an adult who had earned her place in the world. I imagined my parents' faces when I told them about the purchase. Surely they'd be proud that their daughter had achieved such a significant milestone completely on her own. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was to think they'd celebrate my independence. In the Morrison family hierarchy, my success was only valuable if it somehow reflected well on Marcus or made my parents look good to their social circle. The idea that I might achieve something impressive without their help or approval was apparently more threatening than I could have imagined. As I lay in bed that night listening to the rain against my studio apartment windows, I had no idea that within 24 hours, my entire understanding of my family would be shattered by a champagne bottle and the ugly truth about who my parents really were underneath their respectable facade. The engagement party was held at the prestigious Willowbrook Country Club, the same venue where my parents had celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary 2 years earlier. Everything about the event screamed expensive elegance, from the cascading white roses to the crystal champagne flutes that caught the light from the massive chandelier. My mother had outdone herself, creating an atmosphere that would make any society magazine proud. I arrived wearing my one good dress, a simple black cocktail dress I'd owned for 3 years, and immediately felt underdressed compared to the other guests. Marcus's future in-laws, the Rodriguezes, had flown in from California, and Elena's extended family filled half the ballroom with their designer outfits and expensive jewelry. My parents mingled effortlessly with the crowd, introducing Marcus and Elena as if they were royalty, gracing the peasants with their presence. "Scarlett," Elena called out when she spotted me near the appetizer table. She rushed over in her stunning emerald green dress, her engagement ring catching the light like a small spotlight. "I'm so glad you could make it. Isn't this just magical?" Elena had always been kind to me, which made the situation even more complicated. She genuinely seemed to care about having a good relationship with her future sister-in-law, unlike Marcus, who barely acknowledged my existence unless he needed something from me. "It's beautiful," I replied honestly. "Mom really went all out for you guys." She did. And speaking of going all out, Marcus told me the most exciting news about your new place. Elena's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "A condo in Riverside Heights. That's such a gorgeous area. I can't wait to see it when you're all moved in." My blood turned to ice.
"What did you say?"
"Your condo," Marcus said. "Your parents surprised you with it as an early birthday gift." He was so excited, because it means he and I can look at places in the same neighborhood. "We were thinking about that new development on Oak Street, but now that you'll be nearby, we could practically be neighbors." The world tilted sideways. My parents had told Marcus that they bought me the condo in Riverside Heights, the same condo I'd purchased with 6 years of savings and sacrifice. The same condo I hadn't told anyone about, because I wanted to wait until after their precious engagement party. Elena, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, I think there might be some confusion. My parents didn't buy me anything. Her smile faltered. Oh, maybe I misunderstood. Marcus seemed pretty sure about it, though. He even mentioned the address 1247 Riverside Drive, Unit 304. That was exactly my unit, down to the specific apartment number. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared beside Elena, wrapping his arm around her waist with the casual confidence of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. He looked handsome in his navy suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, playing the role of successful fiancé to perfection. "Hey, sis," he said with his trademark charming smile. Elena and I were just talking about how cool it'll be to live in the same area. "Thanks for testing out the neighborhood for us, Marcus," I said carefully. "What exactly did Mom and Dad tell you about Riverside Heights?" His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his features. "They said they bought you the condo as an early birthday present? Unit 304, right? Elena and I drove by last weekend to check out the area. It's really nice. They said they wanted to make sure you were settled somewhere safe before Elena and I start looking for our own place." The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture so ugly I almost couldn't process it. My parents knew about my condo purchase. Somehow, they'd found out about it, and instead of congratulating me or asking how I'd managed to save so much money, they'd decided to claim credit for it. They'd told Marcus that they had bought it for me, making themselves look like generous parents while completely erasing my achievement. But why would they lie about something so easily disproven? "Excuse me," I said to Marcus, "and Elena, I need to use the restroom." I made my way through the crowd on shaking legs, my mind racing. How had they found out? And more importantly, what were they planning to do when the truth came out? The closing was scheduled for next week, and my name would be the only one on the deed. There was no way they could maintain this lie once the paperwork was finalized. Unless they were planning to stop the sale somehow. In the bathroom, I pulled out my phone and called Jennifer, my real estate agent. It went straight to voicemail, which wasn't unusual for a Saturday evening. I left a message asking her to call me first thing Monday morning, then tried to calm my racing heart. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe my parents had found out about the purchase and decided to help with the down payment as a surprise. It wouldn't be the first time they'd made a grand gesture to maintain their image as successful, generous parents. But even as I tried to rationalize their behavior, I knew something was seriously wrong. The look in Marcus's eyes when he mentioned the condo wasn't confusion, it was expectation. He believed that property was somehow connected to his future, not mine. When I returned to the party, I noticed my parents standing near the bar with Marcus and Elena, all four of them engaged in animated conversation. My mother was gesturing excitedly while my father nodded along with his usual authoritative manner. Whatever they were discussing, it involved me. I could tell by the way Marcus glanced in my direction and then quickly looked away. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server and positioned myself close enough to overhear their conversation without being obvious about it. "Perfect timing, really," my mother was saying. "Scarlett's been so focused on work lately, she needed something to remind her that family comes first." "It's incredibly generous," Elena replied. "I hope she knows how lucky she is to have parents who care so much about her future." My father cleared his throat. "Well, we've always believed in investing in our children's success. Marcus with his business ventures, and now Scarlett with her housing situation. We want both of our kids to have strong foundations for their adult lives." Business ventures? That was rich, considering Marcus had never held a job for longer than 6 months and was currently unemployed while he figured out his passion. Meanwhile, I'd been working since I was 16 and had just purchased a $680,000 property with my own money. The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. My parents weren't just taking credit for my achievement, they were positioning it as their investment in my future, as if I were incapable of succeeding without their intervention. They'd turned my moment of independence into another example of their generous parenting, and somehow they'd made it about Marcus's future too. That's when I realized this wasn't just about lying to save face. This was about control, manipulation, and ensuring that even my greatest achievement somehow served their narrative about being perfect parents to their perfect golden child. I was about to find out just how far they were willing to go to maintain that narrative. The evening reached its crescendo during the official toast, when my father stood up with his champagne flute raised high, commanding the attention of the 60-plus guests scattered throughout the elegant ballroom. The string quartet stopped playing, conversations died down, and all eyes turned to Robert Morrison, who looked every inch the successful patriarch in his expensive charcoal suit. Ladies and gentlemen, he began with the confident voice of someone accustomed to being heard. Linda and I want to thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the engagement of our son Marcus to the lovely Elena Rodriguez. Polite applause rippled through the crowd as Marcus and Elena beamed from their positions near the head table, looking like the perfect couple they were supposed to be. As parents, there's nothing more satisfying than watching your children grow into successful, responsible adults, my father continued. Marcus has always been driven, ambitious, and focused on building a bright future. And now, with Elena by his side, we know that future is going to be even brighter. More applause. I noticed several guests nodding approvingly, completely buying into the narrative my parents had spent decades crafting. Which brings me to an exciting announcement, my father said, his smile growing wider. Linda and I have decided to give Marcus and Elena a very special engagement gift. A beautiful condo in the prestigious Riverside Heights development, where they can start their married life in style. The champagne flute slipped from my hand, shattering against the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the sudden silence in my head. Every single person in that room turned to look at me, but I couldn't process their stares because my father's words were still ringing in my ears. My condo. They were giving away my condo to Marcus and Elena. Dad, I said, my voice cutting through the polite murmurs of approval from the guests. Can I talk to you for a minute? His smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. Of course, sweetheart. But let me finish the toast first. No, I said louder this time. I need to talk to you right now. The room fell completely silent. Elena looked confused, Marcus appeared annoyed, and my mother was shooting daggers at me with her eyes. But I was beyond caring about their perfect party or their carefully constructed image. Scarlett, my mother hissed, approaching me with her own champagne flute gripped tightly in her manicured fingers. This is neither the time nor the place for whatever drama you're planning to create. Drama, I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter in the elegant space. You want to talk about drama? How about the drama of promising my condo to Marcus and Elena? Your condo. My father's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. Scarlett, I think you're confused. We purchased that property as an investment and we've decided to give it to Marcus and Elena as a wedding gift. The lies were so smooth, so confident, that for a moment I almost doubted my own memory. But then I remembered the 6 years of saving, the countless nights eating ramen noodles, the 3 jobs I'd worked simultaneously to make this dream a reality. That's interesting, I said, pulling out my phone. Because I have the purchase agreement right here and my name is the only one on it. I bought that condo with my own money, Dad. 6 years of saving every penny I could spare. The color drained from my mother's face, but my father's expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted rage. "Don't you dare lie to these people," he said through gritted teeth. "Don't you dare try to sabotage your brother's engagement with your jealous fantasies." Fantasies. I turned to address the crowd, many of whom were now holding up their phones to record what was clearly becoming a family meltdown. "Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to see the proof? I have emails from my real estate agent, bank statements showing the wire transfer and signed contracts. All in my name, all paid for with money I earned working 70-hour weeks while my parents paid for Marcus's failed business ventures." That's when my mother snapped. "You ungrateful little bitch," she screamed, hurling her champagne flute directly at my head. The crystal glass struck my temple with a sharp crack, champagne and blood mixing as they dripped down my face. "After everything we've done for you, after every sacrifice we've made, this is how you repay us. By trying to steal your brother's engagement gift, the pain was immediate and intense, but the shock was even worse. My own mother had just thrown a champagne bottle at me in front of 60 witnesses, calling me names that would make a sailor blush, all because I dared to claim ownership of something I'd actually purchased. But here's what made this moment even more surreal. Instead of helping me or expressing concern about my bleeding head, my father joined in. "You're nothing but a selfish, attention-seeking failure," he snarled, advancing on me with his own glass raised. "You can't stand the fact that Marcus is successful in love, so you create these elaborate lies to make yourself feel important." That's when I realized I'd been recording the entire confrontation on my phone, which I'd pulled out to show them the purchase agreement. Every word, every accusation, every moment of their complete meltdown was being captured in high-definition video, including what happened next. You know what, if you're as shocked as I was in that moment, go ahead and hit that like button because this story is about to take a turn that even I couldn't have predicted. And if you're wondering how this could possibly get any crazier, trust me, we're just getting started. The way my family imploded that night taught me everything I needed to know about the difference between blood relatives and actual family. But what happened next proved that sometimes karma works faster than you could ever imagine. Marcus grabbed his own champagne flute and threw it at me, shouting, "Stop trying to ruin everything. This is my night, my condo, my life. You don't get to steal what's mine." The second glass caught me in the shoulder, but I barely felt it, because I was too busy processing the fact that my entire family had just physically assaulted me in front of dozens of witnesses, all while being recorded on multiple phones. Elena was crying, her hands covering her mouth in horror. Several guests had started backing toward the exits, clearly uncomfortable with the violence they were witnessing. The country club's manager appeared at my side with a towel for my bleeding head, while the string quartet packed up their instruments with impressive speed. But the most telling moment came when my mother realized that people were recording everything. "Put those phones away!" she shrieked at the guests. "This is a private family matter. You have no right to film this. Too late!" In the age of social media, family meltdowns become public property faster than you can say viral video. And my parents, who had spent decades carefully curating their image as the perfect American family, had just destroyed that reputation in less than 10 minutes. As I stood there, blood dripping from my temple and champagne staining my dress, I looked around at the faces of their friends, colleagues, and social circle. The shock, disgust, and judgment in their expressions told me everything I needed to know about how this night would be remembered. But I still had one more card to play, and it was going to change everything. Standing in that ballroom with blood trickling down my face, surrounded by horrified guests and the ruins of Marcus's perfect engagement party, I made a decision that would define the rest of my relationship with my family. I stopped the recording on my phone, saved the video to my cloud storage, and then did something that I'd never done before in 28 years of being the family disappointment. I fought back. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. I want to thank you all for bearing witness to the true character of the Morrison family. What you've just seen is how my parents react when they can't control the narrative or steal credit for someone else's achievements. My mother lunged toward me again, but the country club manager stepped between us. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down, or we'll need to call security. Security, my father barked. We're the ones paying for this event. She's the one causing problems. Sir, the manager replied firmly, your daughter is bleeding from a head wound caused by a thrown glass. If anyone needs security, it's her. That's when Elena finally found her voice. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, she said quietly, her face pale with shock. Is it true? Did Scarlett really buy that condo herself? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. My parents exchanged glances clearly, trying to figure out how to spin this situation back in their favor. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the audience was no longer sympathetic. Elena, my mother said, attempting to regain her composure. You have to understand, Scarlett has always been jealous of Marcus. She's probably forged those documents just to stop. I held up my hand, cutting her off. Just stop lying! Elena, would you like to see the proof? Because I have plenty of it. I showed Elena my phone screen, scrolling through the emails with my real estate agent, the bank statements showing the down payment transfer and the signed purchase agreement with my name clearly visible. Her face grew paler with each document. Oh my God, she whispered, turning to Marcus. Honey, did you know about this? Marcus looked like a deer caught in headlights. Mom and Dad said they bought it for her. I didn't know I thought. You thought what I pressed. You thought that two people who've never given me anything more expensive than a birthday card suddenly decided to buy me a $680,000 condo and then decided to give it to you instead? That's enough, my father roared. You're embarrassing this entire family. No, Dad, I replied, my voice growing stronger with each word. You're embarrassing this family. You're the ones who attacked your own daughter with champagne bottles because you got caught in a lie. You're the ones who promised away something that was never yours to give. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Rodriguez, Elena's mother, was standing near the bar with her phone pressed to her ear, speaking rapidly in Spanish. When she hung up, she approached Elena with a grave expression. Mija, she said softly, we need to talk. Elena looked between her mother and Marcus, confusion written across her face. What's wrong, Mama? I just called your father. After witnessing what happened here tonight, we think it would be best if we postponed the wedding until we can better understand the type of family Marcus comes from. The words hit the ballroom like a bomb. Marcus's face went white, my parents looked like they'd been slapped, and Elena started crying harder. Mrs. Rodriguez, Marcus stammered, please don't judge my whole family based on one bad night. This is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was ice cold. Your parents just physically assaulted your sister and attempted to steal property that belongs to her. They lied to you about purchasing something they never bought, and when confronted with the truth, they became violent. This is not a misunderstanding, Marcus. This is a glimpse into who these people really are. Elena was sobbing now, her beautiful engagement party dress stained with tears. Marcus, is this really your family? Is this how you all handle conflict? Elena, please, Marcus begged, reaching for her hands. Don't let one bad moment ruin everything we've planned together. But Elena stepped back, her engagement ring catching the light as she twisted it nervously on her finger. One bad moment, Marcus. Your parents threw glass at your sister's head over money. What happens when we have disagreements? What happens when we have children and they don't behave the way your parents want them to? The implications of her words were devastating, and I could see Marcus realizing that his perfect night had turned into a relationship-ending disaster. "Mrs. Rodriguez," I said, stepping forward despite the throbbing pain in my head, "I want you to know that Elena has always been kind to me. Whatever happens between her and Marcus, she deserves better than what you witnessed tonight." Elena looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Scarlett, I'm so sorry." I had no idea they were planning to. I never would have gone along with it if I'd known the truth. "I know," I replied. "You're not responsible for their lies." That's when my mother made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Everyone just needs to calm down," she announced loudly. "We can work this out like civilized people. Scarlett, if you really did buy that condo, then we'll help you with the mortgage payments. And Marcus and Elena can find another place. Problem solved." The audacity was breathtaking. Even after being caught red-handed in their lies, even after physically attacking me, my mother was still trying to position herself as the reasonable peacemaker. "Mom," I said, slowly, "I don't want your help with anything. I don't want your money, your advice, or your presence in my life. What I want is for you to acknowledge what you've done and apologize to Elena for ruining her engagement party with your greed and violence." "Apologize," my father sputtered. "We have nothing to apologize for. If anyone should be apologizing, it's you for." He never finished that sentence, because at that moment, Elena pulled off her engagement ring and handed it to Marcus. "I can't do this," she said quietly. "I can't marry into a family that solves problems with violence and lies. I'm sorry, Marcus, but this engagement is over." The ring hit the marble floor with a tiny ping that somehow seemed louder than all the shouting that had come before. Marcus stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at his parents with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Pure hatred. "You destroyed everything," he said to them, his voice barely above a whisper. "You ruined my relationship, humiliated me in front of everyone, and for what? A condo that was never even yours to give." And that's when I realized that my parents' greed and manipulation hadn't just cost them their relationship with me, it had cost them everything. The week following the engagement party felt like living in the aftermath of a natural disaster. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from relatives, family, friends, and even strangers who had seen the videos that were now circulating on social media. Someone had posted the footage of my parents throwing champagne glasses at me, and it had gone viral with hashtags like #ChampagneGate and #ToxicFamily. I spent Monday morning in urgent care getting stitches for the cut on my temple, then went straight to my real estate agent's office to ensure there were no complications with my condo purchase. Jennifer was horrified when I told her what had happened, but she assured me that the closing would proceed as scheduled since my parents had no legal claim to the property. "I have to ask," Jennifer said carefully, "how did your parents even know about this purchase?" "I didn't send any information to anyone except you." That question had been nagging at me since Saturday night. I'd been so careful to keep the purchase secret, paying for everything from my personal accounts and handling all communications myself. But as I thought about it, I remembered something that made my stomach drop. 3 weeks earlier, I'd printed out some documents at my parents' house because my printer had broken. I'd used their home office computer and printer thinking nothing of it, since I was just printing a grocery list and some work-related papers. But what if I'd accidentally left something behind? What if they'd gone through the browser history or found printed pages I'd forgotten about? When I got home that evening, I called my bank to request detailed records of all access to my accounts. What I discovered made me physically sick. For the past 6 months, someone had been monitoring my savings account through online banking. The login records showed access from an IP address that wasn't mine always during hours when I was at work. Someone had been spying on my finances, watching my savings grow and tracking my every financial move. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house for the first time since the engagement party. My mother answered the door looking haggard and older than I'd ever seen her, with dark circles under her eyes and her usually perfect hair unkempt. "Scarlett," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect to see you so soon. We need to talk," I replied, pushing past her into the house I'd grown up in but no longer considered home. My father was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, probably trying to do damage control with his business contacts. The story had made it into the local newspaper's social media pages, and several of his colleagues had already called asking about the incident at the country club. "Dad," I said, placing my bank statements on the table in front of him, "care to explain how someone has been accessing my savings account for the past 6 months? His face went pale, but he tried to maintain his authoritative demeanor. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Really, because the bank has records of every login, including the IP address. Should I call them right now and have them trace it?" My mother sank into a chair, her hands shaking. "Robert, just tell her the truth. This has gone far enough. Tell me what truth," I demanded. My father closed his laptop and looked at me with the first honest expression I'd seen from him in years. "We've been having financial problems," he admitted. "My business has been struggling for the past 2 years, and we're behind on the mortgage. When I saw how much you'd saved, I thought maybe we could convince you to help us." "Help you by stealing my condo and giving it to Marcus." "It wasn't stealing," my mother protested. "We were going to pay you back. We just needed to present it as our gift to Marcus so Elena's family would think we were financially stable. You know how important image is in business." The twisted logic was staggering. They'd planned to steal my property, lie about buying it, and give it to my brother as a wedding gift, all to maintain their social status in front of Elena's wealthy family. "So you accessed my bank accounts illegally, discovered I was buying a condo, and decided to claim it as your own purchase. We thought you'd understand," my father said weakly. "Family is supposed to help family." "Family is supposed to help family," I repeated slowly. "You're right, Dad. So explain to me why in 28 years my family has never helped me with anything. Why I worked 3 jobs in high school while you paid for Marcus's car. Why I took out student loans while you covered his tuition. Why I've been living in a studio apartment eating ramen noodles while you bankrolled his failed business ventures." They had no answer for that because there was no answer that didn't expose the truth about their priorities. "How much do you owe?" I asked. What my mother looked confused. "Your financial problems. How much debt are you carrying?" My parents exchanged glances, and I could see them debating whether to continue lying or come clean. "About 400,000, my father finally admitted. "The business has been losing money, and we took out a second mortgage to keep it afloat. When Marcus's ventures failed, we used credit cards to maintain our lifestyle. We thought if we could present ourselves as successful parents at the engagement party, Elena's father might invest in my company. The whole elaborate scheme was even more pathetic than I'd imagined. They weren't just stealing my condo out of favoritism, they were doing it to fraudulently obtain investment money from Elena's family." "And what happened when the truth came out?" I asked. "What was your plan when Elena's father discovered you didn't actually own the property you'd given away?" "We thought we could convince you to go along with it," my mother said quietly. "We thought you'd want to help Marcus have a happy marriage. By giving up my life's work and savings so you could continue lying to people." "It's just a condo, Scarlett," my father exploded. "You're young. You can save up for another one. And there it was, the fundamental difference in how they viewed my life versus Marcus's. My 6 years of sacrifice and hard work were just a condo that I could easily replace, while Marcus's happiness was worth any amount of lying, stealing, and manipulation. That's when I made a decision that would change our family dynamic forever. "I'm not pressing charges for the identity theft," I said, "but only because I don't want to deal with the legal hassle. However, I am going to make sure Elena's family knows exactly what kind of people you are, and I'm going to make sure everyone in your social circle understands what really happened at that party." "Scarlett, please," my mother begged, "don't destroy us over this. We made a mistake, but we're still your parents." "No," I replied, gathering up my bank statements, "you made a choice. You chose Marcus over me for 28 years, and when I finally achieved something on my own, you chose to steal it rather than celebrate it. You chose to physically attack me rather than admit you were wrong. Those weren't mistakes, they were deliberate decisions that show me exactly where I stand in this family." As I walked toward the door, my father called out one last desperate plea. "If you do this, if you destroy our reputation, you'll never be welcome in this family again." I turned back to look at him, this man who had never once prioritized my happiness or success, and smiled. "Dad, I said I was never welcome in this family to begin with. The difference is now I don't care." 6 months later, I'm sitting in my beautiful condo in Riverside Heights, writing this story for all of you who've been following my journey since that viral champagne bottle video. The view from my balcony is everything. I dreamed it would be city lights twinkling below the river, reflecting the sunset. And most importantly, the peace that comes from knowing I earned every square foot of this place through my own hard work and determination. The aftermath of the engagement party was swift and brutal for my parents. Within days of the incident, Elena's father had called every mutual business contact to warn them about Robert Morrison's fraudulent practices and violent behavior. My father's company lost 3 major clients within a week, and the remaining business dried up shortly after. They were forced to sell their house to pay down their debts and moved into a small apartment across town. Marcus, meanwhile, spiraled into what I can only describe as a complete breakdown. Losing Elena devastated him in ways I don't think anyone expected, least of all our parents. For the first time in his life, he had to face the consequences of the family's toxic behavior, and he didn't handle it well. He moved back in with our parents in their cramped apartment, unemployed and bitter, finally experiencing what it felt like to be the family disappointment. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, and why I believe in karma more than ever. 3 months after the engagement party, Marcus called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Scarlett," he said, his voice shaky and unfamiliar. "I need to talk to you. Can we meet somewhere?" We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where neither of us had any emotional baggage. Marcus looked terrible thin, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes that reminded me of how our mother had looked the morning after the party. "I owe you an apology," he said, without preamble. "Actually, I owe you about 28 years worth of apologies, but I don't know where to start." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but all I saw was genuine remorse and exhaustion. "Elena left me because of how our family treated you," he continued. "But the thing is, she didn't just leave me because of that night. She left me because she realized that I'd been complicit in it my entire life. She said she couldn't marry someone who had watched his sister be treated like garbage and never once stood up for her. It was true. In 28 years, Marcus had never once defended me against our parents' favoritism or cruel comments. He'd simply accepted the benefits of being the golden child while I suffered in the background. She was right, Marcus admitted. I knew how they treated you was wrong, but I liked being their favorite too much to say anything. I let them destroy your self-esteem and steal your achievements because it made my life easier. The apology was more honest than anything I'd ever heard from my family, but I wasn't ready to forgive and forget just yet. What do you want from me, Marcus? Nothing, he said, surprising me. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what you went through, and I'm sorry I was part of it. I also wanted you to know that Mom and Dad are planning to contest your purchase of the condo. That got my attention. On what grounds? They're claiming that since they helped you with money over the years, they have a partial ownership stake in anything you buy. It's complete bullshit, and their lawyer told them they have no case, but they're desperate. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. They never helped me with money, Marcus. Ever. I know. I told them the same thing, and that's when they kicked me out of their apartment. They kicked you out last week. They said if I wasn't going to support the family against you, then I wasn't welcome there either. So now I'm staying in a hostel downtown looking for work and trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. For the first time in our relationship, Marcus and I were on equal footing. We were both adults who had been damaged by our parents' toxic behavior, and we were both trying to figure out how to move forward. Elena texted me last night, Marcus said quietly. She wanted me to know that she's been following your story online, and she's proud of how you handled everything. She said you showed more grace and strength in one night than our entire family had shown in decades. That message meant more to me than Marcus probably realized. Elena had been an innocent victim in our family's drama, and knowing that she didn't blame me for the destruction of her engagement was a relief I hadn't expected to feel. I'm glad she's doing well, I said sincerely. She is. She's back in California, and she's dating someone new, a guy who actually treats her family with respect, according to her Instagram. We sat in silence for a moment, two siblings who were essentially strangers trying to figure out if there was any relationship worth salvaging between us. I don't know if we can ever be close, Marcus said finally, but I want you to know that if Mom and Dad try to cause you any more legal trouble, I'll testify on your behalf. I'll tell the truth about how they treated you, and I'll make sure everyone knows that you earned that condo completely on your own. It wasn't a complete redemption arc, but it was more accountability than I'd ever gotten from anyone in my family. I appreciate that, I told him. Also, Marcus added with a weak smile, congratulations on the condo. I drove by it last week, and it's really beautiful. You should be proud of what you accomplished. Those words, the acknowledgement and respect I'd been craving my entire life, finally came from the last person I'd expected to give them to me. As I sit here now looking out at my city view and thinking about everything that's happened, I realize that sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting elaborate schemes or seeking dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding despite the people who tried to hold you back and living well while they face the consequences of their own choices. My parents' legal challenge failed spectacularly, just as Marcus predicted. When their lawyer reviewed their financial records and discovered they'd never contributed a single dollar to my savings or expenses, he dropped them as clients rather than file a frivolous lawsuit that would damage his reputation. But here's the real kicker, and the reason I believe karma is absolutely real. Last month, Elena's father contacted me through LinkedIn. It turns out he's a successful real estate developer who was impressed by my work ethic and financial discipline. He offered me a position as a project manager for his company's East Coast expansion with a salary that's double what I was making at my old job. The same family that my parents tried to defraud with their lies about my condo ended up offering me the career opportunity of a lifetime. Elena herself recommended me for the position, telling her father that anyone who could save $680,000 while working multiple jobs and deal with family betrayal with such grace would be an asset to any company. So now I'm not just living in my dream condo, I'm working my dream job, making enough money to pay off my mortgage years early, and building relationships with people who value honesty, hard work, and integrity. My parents, meanwhile, are still struggling financially and have become social pariahs in their former community. The viral video of them throwing champagne glasses at me has over 2 million views across various platforms, and they've become a cautionary tale about toxic family dynamics and narcissistic parenting. Marcus is slowly rebuilding his life, working at a restaurant while he figures out his next steps. We text occasionally, nothing deep or emotional, just checking in on each other like acquaintances who share some complicated history. It's not the close sibling relationship I used to dream about, but it's honest, which is more than we ever had before. As for me, I'm thriving in ways I never imagined possible. I've made new friends through work and my neighborhood. I'm dating someone who actually appreciates my independence and ambition, and for the first time in my life I wake up every morning in a space that's entirely mine earned, through my own efforts and filled with my own choices. But here's what I want to know from all of you. Have you ever experienced family karma like this? Have you ever had to choose between toxic relatives and your own well-being? Because my story taught me that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into, and sometimes walking away from blood relatives is the healthiest thing you can do. Drop a comment below and tell me about your own experiences with family drama or times when karma came full circle in your life. I read every single one, and I love hearing how other people have navigated similar situations. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming toxic family dynamics. And definitely share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's possible to build the life you deserve, even when your own family tries to tear you down. Thank you for following my journey from that humiliating night at the country club to where I am now, successful, independent, and surrounded by people who actually value me. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, and sometimes karma works in ways that are more beautiful than anything you could plan yourself. Remember, you don't owe toxic people access to your success, no matter how much DNA you share. Trust me on this one. I learned it the hard way, but I learned it completely. Until next time, keep standing up for yourselves out there, and never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve the life you've worked to build.